Our first speaker has the motto, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So he started the X Prize, and the idea with the X Prize is to spur innovators and inventors to unlock the big new ideas for the next generation, the big new markets and ideas and innovations. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Peter Diamandis.
Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. I hope you guys are in for an amazing day. So let me begin. I fundamentally believe that every challenge we have on this planet can be solved. And it's up to us to take that challenge and use it as an inspiration to go out there and make things happen. And I believe what I say here, that the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. So today, we are living in an extraordinary period of time. A period which has been described by many as disruptive, but with huge opportunity. We are going to see over the years ahead the fall of billion-dollar industries and the seemingly creation of new billion-dollar companies overnight. We've seen that with Google, with Twitter, whatever it might be. And the question is, why is that happening? So it hit me as I stopped to think about this, that for the last million or so years, as humans, we have evolved to think in a local and linear fashion. What do I mean by that? If you think about generations ago, they knew their local community. They knew the people that they lived with. The life of their grandparents and the life of their children was identical. But today, that has changed in extraordinary fashion. We've gone from living in local and linear to a world that is global and exponential. And I want you to really get the impact of what that means. When you take 10 linear steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, you end up 10 steps away. And that's the way we think. In the world of linear, in the world of Earth that we've grown up with, you wanted to see if a tiger was running at you to grab you, do you have enough time to get up that tree? And the brain being designed to extrapolate on linear terms was very important to our lives. But we're now living in an exponential world. We're taking 10 exponential steps and you 1,000 steps away. And our ability to understand this exponential world is causing a tremendous amount of this disruptive influence. These are some charts you might have seen from my close friend and colleague Ray Kurzweil last year, where it shows the exponential march of technology known as Moore's Law, the fact that the price performance of computers and digital systems are doubling every 12 to 18 months. Now, this is over the course of 100 years. If you look at it, it's through wartime, recession, depression, good time, a constant march of technical progress. Now, what's interesting, though, is if you stop and you look at the price performance of a $1,000 laptop, the brain calculates at about 10 to the 16th cycles per second. Our brain is a pattern recognition machine, able to understand sight and sound and thinking and such. And today, the average $1,000 laptop is computing about 10 to the 11th cycles per second. Now, what's interesting about this inexorable march of technology is that in the order of 20 years, the average $1,000 laptop is going to compute at the rate of the average human brain. And what's more interesting is that 20 years later, this laptop is computing at the average rate of the entire human race. So what does that mean? That growth is coupled with something else. It's the incorporation of technology into our lives at a faster and faster rate. This is a chart that shows the basic incorporation of a new technology into a quarter of the population of the US. And it shows that the rate of incorporation is going faster and faster. And if you stop and you recognize that the cell phone is the most prevalent piece of technology on the planet, and that by the end of 2012, 80% of the world's population will have access to this tool, what does that mean? The final point I'll make here is that sitting down in front of a laptop, connected to the internet, connected to Google, gives you more power at your fingertips today as individuals than a government nation did 30 years ago. For me, that's extraordinary. So what is it going to look like in 30 years from now? I said it earlier, and I believe that every problem can be solved. It's a matter of how do you incentivize people. This is a good friend of mine, Gene Cernan, a local Houstonian, Apollo 17 astronaut in 1972. And he said, if we could have gone from never having gone into space to landing on the moon in 8 years, you tell me what's impossible. Nothing is impossible. And in fact, when JFK in 1961 put out that clarion call and said, I want us to get and land on the moon and bring humanity back safely by the end of the decade, the people who invented the navigation, the propulsion, the guidance systems, the structures to get us there, the average age of those engineers who moved to places like Clear Lake, Texas, or Huntsville, Alabama, the average age was in their mid to late 20s. They developed the capability that did not exist. They answered that challenge. So I asked myself, what is it that drives people to incentivize, to drive breakthroughs? Because to really take on a breakthrough requires huge risk. The day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. If it wasn't a crazy idea, it wouldn't be a breakthrough, it would be an incremental improvement. So to really have a breakthrough, like computing on silicon and using vacuum tubes, means trying something extraordinarily different that has a risk to your wallet, your reputation, your family, whatever it might be. So ultimately, you get what you incentivize. So how do you incentivize those breakthroughs? How do you incentivize crazy ideas and taking risk? Well, there are 4 drivers. The first is fear. JFK's response to going to the moon was the result of us having lost the race for Sputnik in 1957 and the race for putting the first human into orbit won by the Russians, the Soviets, on April 12th, Gagarin. Fear is the most powerful motivator. Curiosity is another motivator. Is there a life out there in the universe? You can actually measure the ratio of fear to curiosity as a driver for human activities. It's the ratio of the defense budget to the science budget. I wish it weren't funny, but it's true. Another driver is wealth creation. I mean, can you think of the extraordinary mindset that says, so let's see, we found oil miles down under the deepest oceans. We're going to build this platform in Scandinavia and pull it out into the North Sea and drill down through the ocean and down into the core of the earth. I mean, my God. But driven by the huge potential for wealth, whatever it might be, drives people to take extraordinary risks and do extraordinary things. But one of the most important drivers for me is human significance. The desire for a person to be significant in their lives, with their family, with their community. And it was this story of Charles Lindbergh who got me going about this idea of incentive prizes. You see, Lindbergh just didn't cross the Atlantic on a whim one day. He was inspired by a $25,000 prize for the first person to fly between New York and Paris. And that $25,000 prize drove 9 different teams to spend $400,000. What was extraordinary was that within 18 months of Lindbergh's flight, who was the most unlikely person to do it, when he did do it, the number of people flying in the United States went from 6,000 to 180,000. There was a 30-fold increase because this dramatic event changed people's mindset of what they thought was possible. So on the heels of that, and because I, in my heart of hearts, am a space explorer, someone who desires to help take the human race off this planet to the stars, the idea of the X Prize came to mind. The X stood for the name of the person who would eventually put up the money for this $10 million prize. I didn't know who it was going to be, and I sort of put a variable there to hold the position. But it was going to be a $10 million purse, and it sort of sounded good, so I stuck with it for a while. A $10 million purse for the first person to build a spaceship that can carry 3 adults up into space, come down, land safely, and do it again within 2 weeks. Well, it worked. We had 26 teams from 7 different nations who spent $100 million to win this $10 million prize. And the best part about it was, rather than just backing a single team, the competition drove a new industry to come into existence. We were on the front page of Google. We had about 6 billion media impressions. And ultimately, the winning ship, Spaceship One here, is hanging in the Air and Space Museum right above the Apollo 11 capsule and next to the Spirit of St. Louis. How cool is that? So let me take you back to that day to see what it was like. We're announcing today something called the X Prize, a $10 million contest to privately build a spaceship that's able to carry 3 individuals, fly to 100 kilometers altitude, and do that twice inside of 2 weeks.
By defining the challenge with the Ansari X Prize, the X Prize Foundation ignited a new race to space, luring teams from around the globe.
Based in Mojave, California.
Israel, Oklahoma, Washington, Romania.
Acting as the catalyst, the X Prize Foundation demonstrated an incentivized competition can change the world.
Hey, $10 million prize. $10 million meant a lot to me.
It certainly helped give us some focus.
It's an obsession.
Working evenings and nights and weekends.
I have never been myself as creative as I have eyeballing this prize. I'm not going to tell you what I've come up with because I'm all ready.
And there it goes. Hello and welcome to
Really? Hard.
The Ansari X Prize inspired international competition, drove regulatory reform, and made history, dramatically demonstrating that space travel was not exclusively the province of government.
The X Prize, $10 million.
It ignited a personal spaceflight revolution.
So on the heels of that, we were able to bring some extraordinary people on board the X Prize to look at what are the grand challenges of our time, where are things stuck, where are there market failures, where can an incentivized competition really be disruptive, and challenge the best and brightest minds from anywhere on the planet to come forward and solve it. Because when we put up a prize, we say, I don't care where you went to school, what you've done before, if you solve this problem, you win. We were able to bring on folks like the Ansari family, who ended up sponsoring the first prize. We named it in their honor, the Ansari X Prize. Larry and Sergey from Google, Eric Schmidt, Ratan Tata from Tata Industries, Elon Musk, Will Wright, Craig Venter, who sequenced the human genome. And what we've decided to do is develop prizes in 4 group areas. Life science prizes, exploration, which is space and underwater, energy and the environment, and education and global development. We have 3 active prizes. We're launching on the average about an X Prize per year, which is a $10 million or larger challenge. The first one is called the Archon X Prize for Genomics. Craig Venter is the co-chair of that prize competition. And it's to sequence 100 human genomes in 10 days. At the end of the day, having a single human genome sequence is a scientific interest, but it's not until you get to thousands or millions of genomes that it becomes of value, where you can start to build the databases that are predictive to say everyone with this gene sequence had this particular ailment, or this gene sequence was able to live this far longer. Part of the way that we're implementing this is to have something we call the Genome 100, which will be 100 genomes that are sequenced as part of this to create an excitement with the public. And one of the first genomes we brought on was that of Stephen Hawking, and then building it with a number of known people. But we'll have about 1/3 of the genomes be well-known individuals, about 2/3 being members of individuals chosen by the public from various disease groups, so we can start to build those databases. The next prize that we launched with the support of Google is called the Google Lunar X Prize. And all you have to do to win this is build a robot, launch it, land it on the surface of the moon, send back photos and videos, rove a half a kilometer, and send back more photos and videos. But we have 21 teams from around the planet going after this $30 million prize. And the recent announcement that there is, in fact, hydroxyl and water molecules on the surface of the moon is a real instigator for these teams to go forward, because if you do the calculation, the value of water on the surface of the moon is about $25,000 an ounce. 25 times more than gold. It's, for me, it's the ignition of a gold rush to go out there, because water equates to oxygen and rocket fuel. It's the Saudi oil fields, if you would, of outer space. We have 20 different teams looking at 20 different ways to get to the lunar surface. And if it wins in the next 3 or 4 years, it could literally beat one of the governments back to the surface of the moon and bring the cost down by 1 or 2 orders of magnitude. Probably one of the most significant prizes we have underway that will be won in mid-2010 is the Progressive Automotive X Prize. The challenge here, and as you'll hear from our next speaker, is to really liberate humanity and the U.S. from our addiction to oil. And we put up a challenge for a new generation of cars that can be beautiful, safe, fast, manufacturable, and oh, by the way, get over 100 miles per gallon or its energy equivalent. Because at the end of the day, it's not about having to choose between one of those or the other. You can have it all. We put up this registration. We have brought in 111 teams from 136 vehicles from 11 countries who are designing and building these kinds of cars. And our goal is not a single winner, but a new generation of cars. Our timeline for the competition we'll be announcing on Monday in New York. We launched this competition at the New York Auto Show. We'll be announcing Monday in New York that we have narrowed it down. We've gone through our testing or our judging. We'll be announcing a field of vehicles actually be going to the races that will run between May and August of this summer. We'll be announcing our winner in the fall of 2010. Amazing vehicles, and you'll be seeing these on TV and then used soon enough. I'll just mention that we are in the midst of the next prize to be won. It's a $2 million lunar lander challenge that we administer. Money comes up from NASA. And this is for a new generation of vertical takeoff, vertical landing vehicles. Since we haven't built anything that's gone to the moon, and we just last month, from a team here in Texas, had a very successful flight. And I want to show you the video. Now, this is a team of 6 part-time people doing something that large industry spent literally $90 million to do. Let's take a look at their winning or their qualifying flight. This is John Carmack, who wrote Quake and Doom. So this is a vehicle that has to take off horizontally. It's liquid oxygen, alcohol powered, has to fly for 180 seconds, land on a lunar surface, refuel, and go back. So if you think about the fact that this is a video game designer building rocket-powered vehicles, they're going up to 150 meters, 150 feet, over 150 feet, and landing. And it's the energy equivalent of going from lunar orbit, landing on the lunar surface, and then refueling and taking off back to lunar orbit. I love that part. So the question is, where are we going next with the X Prize? This is exciting for us. The number of challenges that we have to ignite human brilliance is extraordinary. We're looking at ocean exploration prizes. Eric Schmitz funded us to look at this. Imagine the first underwater autonomous vehicle that can circumnavigate the planet. Bionics. We're looking at the ability to have a pair of strap-on legs for someone who's lost their legs or lost use of their legs. It allows them to ambulate and walk and climb a mountain and operate like a normal human every day. We're getting ready to launch next year a healthcare X Prize to reinvent the healthcare system in the United States. Not a matter of who pays for it, but how it's made far more efficient. So we go from sick care to wellness. An autonomous car X Prize. Imagine a car that can navigate autonomously from LA to New York. Or a car that can beat a top-seeded Grand Prix car racer in a Grand Prix race. A carbon capture X Prize. Imagine being able to say, I can remove a ton of carbon from the atmosphere for a given number of joules in a given amount of time. A brain-computer interface X Prize. Or an artificial intelligent physician. So, if you remember this, you get what you incentivize. And for me, the most critical tools for solving humanity's grand challenges is the passionate and committed human mind. Thank you very much, everybody.